Hello, my dear friends. It is I, Dave Makes Noises. Thank you so much for joining us again today at Rip Daddy's house. We are going to get to the stories in just a second, but first, real quick, I just wanted to ask you to check out our new podcast, Knowledge with Nolan, dropping on Saturdays, as well as our live streams every Sunday and Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. GMT. And of course, as always, I would love for you to check out our subreddit, r/MrRipper, where we have been gathering many of the stories that we now share regularly on this channel. So if you'd like your story professionally narrated, that'd be where you drop it. That's really all I have to say for now. So now I must ask you, D&D Players of Reddit, what was the most memorable thing to happen to you in-game? Part 1. It wasn't what happened in the game that was memorable. It was what happened while we were playing it that was pretty cool. We liked playing in abandoned buildings, and this one place was huge. There were some homeless people living there, and we knew them. They knew us, and they would watch us play and really get into it. One night, we are sitting around on milk crates with a makeshift table playing, and all of a sudden, a bunch of cops show up with flashlights. As they approached and started asking what was going on, a few of the homeless people shushed them and said, "Wait a minute, we want to see how his roll turns out." Once the cops realized that we were playing a game and the homeless folks were just watching, all tension went away. They asked if we were okay. We said, sure, these are our friends. They're just watching us play. We've done it before, never had problems. The cops hung out to watch a few rolls, then went on their way. We played in that building for almost 7 years. The cops only came by like once or twice a month, but never had any issues with us. I was joining a group that had already been playing for a while, but their last session had ended right before a combat encounter. So the DM decided to play that out first, and then introduce my character afterwards. So as I sit there, watching this game, shit goes south fast. None of the players can seem to roll above a 5, and their healer had been taken out in the second round of combat. The DM at this point doesn't want to end the campaign before I even get a chance to play, so he asks if I want to join in on the combat as some dude walking past instead of the way we were going to introduce my character, and I agree with it. I came in like a hero out of Legend. I'm nailing every hit and rolling near max damage every time. The other players are able to finally rally, and the enemies go to flee from us, but I wasn't done. I charge at the fleeing enemies, hoping to take at least one more of them out, and I missed. I wasn't too discouraged. I had, after all, just had one hell of a run. But then the thing attacks me back, and crits. Then rolls max damage. I was reduced from full hit points to dead in one swing, and my character hadn't even technically been introduced to the party yet. The other player characters buried me by the road and went on with their adventure, wondering who the hell that fragile badass was that had saved them in the moment of need while I rolled up a new character. One game, my brother played either a half-orc or ogre. Either way, the character was a lumbering, mentally deficient oaf. At some point, the character began to take on an interest in doorknobs. He started breaking doors and collecting them in a big sack because they were shiny. Someone inevitably pissed him off, and he responded by clobbering them with his sack of knobs. This sparked a furious debate about how much damage a sack of doorknobs does. In the end, it was so affecting that he threw away his mace and used the sack as his main weapon. The first time I played, we were basically all learning. Early 80s basic rulebook, our party had met a lone dwarf on the road, and we'd asked a few questions before the dwarf decided to leave. My mate says, "I'm going to kill him with my sword." We all tried convincing him that it was a bad idea, but he was adamant. We had no idea of alignment either. He killed the dwarf, by accident, with one blow. So we checked for treasure. The DM rolled it up, and it was many thousands of gold pieces worth. We knew something was wrong, but we kept playing, laughing hysterically. Some weeks later, we discovered that the treasure table the DM rolled on was for an entire township of dwarves. The game was great fun when we didn't have any real idea of what was happening. So a member of our evil party was a pixie, who, for one reason or another, was cursed by his goddess to go absolutely mad on the full moon. Like a werewolf, but with no transformation, but more crazy. Anyways, we had just taken over a town from a bunch of paladins, and we were taking stock of our loot and what all the town had to offer when night came. The pixie had been acting more erratically than usual throughout the day, but we thought nothing of it, until he turned invisible and flew off, screaming about gathering seeds for his goddess. He went door to door in the farming communities outside the walls asking for seeds and burning down one house before moving on to the next. We followed the trail of flames and eventually confronted him, though he ran off into the woods before we could capture him. We followed carefully, and again, he left us a trail to follow. The corpses of rabbits and field mice with their ears gnawed off. After about an hour of tracking, we found him mid-munch, frightening him. We gave chase, my warlock's ability to see invisible creatures helping greatly, before we heard a massive thunk. He had ran face first into a tree branch, knocking him out cold. And so ended the Mad Pixie's rampage. Many, many people and cute bunnies were harmed in the making of this story. This is a story that stands out a lot from my recently ended campaign. Our party was trying to fortify their position in a dungeon so that we could all get some rest and regain our spells/hit points. To do this, we decided to blockade the door to the room we were in with some conveniently placed cabinets. Those cabinets happened to be full of unremarkable weapons. Being an impatient barbarian, I decided to just toss everything from one cabinet onto the floor. The conversation went something like this. Me: I toss everything on the floor. DM: so you just throw everything on the floor? Monk: No, we gently lay everything. Me: yes, I just grab all the shit and throw it on the fucking floor. And that's when we learned that one of the unremarkable items was a javelin that could throw lightning bolts. The monk and I took some serious damage. Enraged, I grabbed the offending weapon and broke it over my knee. This triggered an IRL argument with the guy playing the monk losing his shit at me for breaking an imaginary piece of wood and me having to defend my character's actions, which were perfectly consistent with how I had played that character for the last 2 years. He gets angry and breaks things. That's what he does. And I had resisted the DM's wicked suggestion that a member of my character's race, who have hundreds of words for anger but none for cheerful, would likely hurl the javelin at the nearest person, the monk, instead of breaking it. With both of us on our feet arguing, the girl playing the bard quietly asked the DM if we could just get the javelin repaired when we got back to town, which of course we could. Argument over. We both sit down and get back to the task at hand. Edit: the guy playing the monk was still salty about the javelin even a week later. First he bitched about it on the ride home from the game. The DM drove him and another guy home. Then his girlfriend and I crossed paths on the way home from work later that week, and she told me that he was still butthurt about it. Party was split. Some of us lost in an evil temple/castle. Lost folks were short on HP and spells after fighting baddies. They could have been killed by a teddy bear at that point. Tripped a trap. Slimes appeared. Didn't have any way to fight, so they ran into the next room, an alchemist's lab. Out of desperation, they run to the supply closet and start drinking the randomly generated potions the DM has put there. DM rolls for potion type. It's a protection from alignment. DM randomly rolls for alignment type, comes up with neutral. Players successfully argue that protection from neutral potions would protect them against slimes since they have no alignment. Cue the neutrality jokes around the table. Players survived. Nice. I once struck a ghost with a critical hit. The hit apparently so powerful it erased the ghost from all existence. Totally. It wasn't just dissipated. It was erased from reality. For a brief moment, our party didn't recall the fight. My character knew he'd done something, but didn't know what. The ghost's history had been erased. Anyone who knew of it as a ghost had a blank space in their memory. Anyone who knew the ghost before their death had a blank space in their memory. All traces of this being were erased. For a few seconds, this ghost never existed in any plane of reality. It was gone entirely. Past, present, and future. Completely erased. Then suddenly the void filled. The ghost reappeared into reality, then was vanquished and we got the experience. My DM occasionally throws this memory at me. I still can't cope with the metaphysical implications. I'm a relatively new player, so I don't have many campaigns to draw from, but a few from our current campaign. Our group is rather large, but we come if we can, and if not, we make up a reason our character isn't there, so it's kind of drop in, drop out. When we were first starting out, I think we were only level 2, or maybe even 1, I can't remember. We were clearing out a cave that a group of bandits were using as a base to raid the road between towns. After we fight our way through to the main chamber, the bandits, in desperation, release the wild bear they've been trying to train. We had our full party, so we rather quickly managed to defeat the remaining bandits before the half-giant barbarian decided to tame the bear. GM didn't really expect it or really want it to happen, so he had to roll animal handling 3 times to check to see if he could tame it. 18, 17, 19. The GM, still not all that happy about it, ruled that the bear was mostly tamed. It would not attack us, but it would not follow commands or join our party either, and would otherwise be a wild bear that just kind of follows our party around. So, fit the entire rest of the campaign so far, we've had a bear, whom we have named Sir Barrington. The barbarian never enters any cities with us in fear that he'll kill someone, and collectively, we are trying to save enough to get Sir Barrington enlightened and to join our party fully. If he does, he will be more intelligent than the barbarian who trained him. But since he'll only know giant, the barbarian is the one who will pick, since he was the one who tamed him. He'll only be able to communicate through the idiotic barbarian's translations. I was actually the DM for this. As a DM, I'm notorious for having the first encounter way too hard because I overestimate their abilities, because I know my group would wipe the floor with that encounter because we have a good mix. But this group I DM'd for had like 2 rogues and a mage. So anyway, the team is barely holding on. So I sent in a character I had rolled that was kind of supposed to be their rival in a way, but when they were all stuck in a corner, they would work together. This character was an absolute tank. Like, nearly impossible to kill compared to everything else at their level. As soon as he runs into the fight, one of the rogues shoots a crossbow, and critically fails. Now, if I have this fail hit anyone other than the tank, that person would be dead. So I go easy on them and let it hit the tank. He had the HP for it. Anyway, as soon as he enters the fight, the monsters crit the tank, and then the tank fails all the saving throws and dies. Essentially, he entered the fight for half a second before dying because one of the players who desperately needed his help crit him by accident. Avast me, hearties, it be I, First Mate Dave Beard, of the good ship HMS Ripdaddy's House. If ye be sweet on our channel, please join our chat crew for the live streams every Sunday and Wednesday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. GMT, and chart a course towards our new podcast, Knowledge with Nolan, every Saturday. If ye be a DM or player, mosey that peg leg on over to our Discord server to find a group. If ye be seeking to spin tall tales of your own adventures with your fellows, navigate your dinghy over to our subreddit, r/MrRipper, where we gather stories for this channel all the time. If you wish to help us patch this old salty vessel, perhaps our shanties have spoken to your seafaring soul. Consider purchasing an article of clothing from our merchandise marketplace below. If you wish to put wind in the sails of my spirit, you can spot me website, www.davemakesnoises.com, through the internet spyglass of your choosing. Don't be afraid to sing a shanty with your mateys today, brave sailor. Thank you again for keeping a tab on us. We love you. Please sub for Nat 20s. Eat your fruits and veg so you don't catch the scurvy, and we'll make landfall again with you tomorrow. Peace out.